Hello, welcome back to Wayfinding. Daniel, Dylan, welcome.
Hello.
What's going on?
Just chilling. How's your day been?
Boring.
Stressful, boring, interesting. Two different sides of the thing.
Well, this whole month has been stressful so far.
Well, yeah, it's Christmas time at a church, so
Makes sense. I was told to be at church by 10 o'clock to help Morgan and Daniel decorate the student building.
Mm-hmm.
They did not inform me that they were not going to decorate today because the all staff meeting was moved to Northwest.
Ah.
And so I helped Daniel for about 30 minutes, and then he went to lunch.
There you go.
And that's basically it.
Nice.
Yeah, Pop Bellies was really good.
Well, we are here. This is episode 4 of Wayfinding. Nathaniel has now this rhythm. Imagine if he's going to show up next week and he's just going to be in this rhythm of like every other episode. He can join us. Last week, he brought up a good point that we've gone a few weeks into this and we haven't actually read.
We haven't gone our daily dose of Jesus on Mondays.
Yes, we have. Well, we haven't done our reading plan. Well, not reading plan, but whatever. We haven't done our study because we've just gone into these discussions, which have been great discussions, great questions. But we do also want to take time. This is designed, or this all started because we were having a Bible study. So we're going to get into that today. We're going to be reading John chapter 2 for our listening audience.
Which is everybody.
A quick recap, and actually it does help us to know where we're at. The book of John we selected because we've been doing this Bible study for a year and a half or so. Year and a half.
Give or take.
The point of it was we wanted to study scripture and gain an understanding of what it says. What is the point of it? Like, why did the author write it? What is the central message of the whole thing? All of those, we want an understanding of each book, of each chapter, so that we can better understand scripture as a whole and how it points to Jesus. In our efforts, we started up just reading Luke randomly because I was reading through Luke with my life group at the time.
Ex-life group.
My life group at the time.
I just kicked him to the curb.
Listen.
He kind of kicked himself to the curb.
Yeah. We started up with Luke. Then we went to Romans. And after that, we studied half of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel because we wanted to look at the life of David. As we took a look at that, we read some one-offs, read short books of the Bible, and we went through 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And then we thought to ourselves, let's go ahead and just read the book of John, which entails Jesus's ministry and just how the disciples come alongside that. Oftentimes, John is referred to new believers because it is written in such a way that you can read the book of John and understand who Jesus is and what he did in his life and ministry. I love the way that John writes it in John chapter 20, at the very end, verse 31. It says, the disciples saw Jesus do many other miraculous signs in addition to the ones recorded in this book. But these are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing in him, you will have life by the power of his name. So he points out Jesus did so many other things and so many things that are not written in this book. And I think he mentions in another instance, it's worded like there's other books that will tell you more about what Jesus did.
Yeah.
I selected these so that you may know that Jesus is the Messiah. So the whole point of the book of John is that we know that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is the one that we have been waiting for, the Messiah. He is the Christ. That's the reason for John. So I love reading through John. Chapter 1, we started off prior to the recording of this podcast, prior to us deciding to record our Bible study. We read John chapter 1. My thoughts were like, what an intro. What a way to like begin a book. And to me, it was very cinematic because John starts it off and saying, in the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him. Nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. What an opening, like, paragraph. He is setting up this theme. So again, to me, this is like a cinematic opener to a movie. In the beginning was the Word. There was a light. The light shined in the darkness. Then he introduces this character, John the Baptist. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. So we now have a character, a prophet who was supposed to tell everyone about the light. Jump down to verse 14. So the Word became human and made his home among us. This is Jesus coming to reality, coming to earth, like coming to man. God left his throne so that he could become human and build a relationship with us personally. John is painting this picture of this is what was. We have everything existing. God existed first, and this light existed before everything. It shined in the darkness. John the Baptist told us about the light, and yet we still didn't believe him. And so the light, God, had to become human and come into existence so that we could be together. And so now that we have this timeline, we are introduced to John the Baptist, and we follow up with him, and the Pharisees are interacting with him, trying to figure out, like, John, who are you? What are, are you the Messiah that we've been waiting for? And John the Baptist says, no, I am not. And they even say, like, are you Elijah? Are you, are you all these prophets that we've been waiting for? He says, no. John says, I am a voice shouting in the wilderness, clear the way, for the Lord is coming. And then Jesus comes to John the Baptist. Mm-hmm. John the Baptist gets to baptize Jesus, and the Spirit of the Lord visually descends upon Jesus, verifying to John the Baptist, this is the Messiah. And so John testifies before everyone, and basically summarizing everything up until this point. Guys, we have been waiting for this light. We have been waiting for the Messiah. This is him. And so all the disciples that John had amassed, because he had been telling people about this coming Messiah, he had been telling people about this coming kingdom, the Lord is coming. Everyone started following John and trying to learn from him. John points his disciples to Jesus. He says, guys, this is the guy we have been waiting for forget following me, go after him.
Mhm.
And we pointed out how that is the way that we are to disciple. Is it's not about coming to any person, it is about coming to Jesus. And so it's not about, as we all are discipling each other, we are not here for any particular purpose in terms of ourselves. We are here for Jesus. We are here. I am only pointing you to Jesus. Discipleship is only worth it if it's pointing to Jesus.
Yeah.
So Jesus then calls his first disciples. We have, let's see, what do we have here? Actually, we have Andrew, Peter, Philip, Nathaniel. Yeah, I think those are the four we have mentioned here in John chapter 1.
Yeah, I don't see anything else.
So we have those four. I believe in other instances, it is mentioned that James and John are also with them, but I'm not 100% sure. In this depiction, we're just going to go from here. We have these four disciples. They are now following Jesus, and we're going to pick up in John chapter 2 as they go witness Jesus' first miracle. So let's start reading John chapter 2, verse 1. The next day, there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, "They have no more wine." "Dear woman, that's not our problem," Jesus replied. "My time has not yet come." But his mother told the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." And standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And when the jars had been filled, he said, "Now dip some out and take it to the master of ceremonies." So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, though of course the servants knew, he called the bridegroom over. "A host always serves the best wine first," he said. "Then, when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now." This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After the wedding, he went to Capernaum for a few days with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples. So, the first miracle that Jesus performs, what stands out to you in that passage?
There's a few things that stand out to me. A lot of it's in verse 3 through 4, one of which being, my Bible says, starting verse 3, when the wine ran out, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no wine left." Jesus replied, "Woman, why are you saying this to me? My time has not come yet." The fact that he called his mom woman is unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, to me, that just shows how much power he has.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic because like he is God, but it's also he's still her son.
Yeah.
Like I think it's partially it might be like a cultural thing,
Yeah.
but I feel like even in Jewish custom, like there's a ton of respect for your parents that you're
Mhm.
supposed to have. So it just seems odd to us, and it seems odd reading it and Jesus referring to her as just woman. Why are you saying this to me?
Yeah. If I told my mom that, I would get slapped.
Right?
But now, if I do end up saying that and just be like, it's in the Bible. I'm just trying to
It's
live like
biblical.
just trying to live like Jesus.
I'm just trying to be like Jesus. Oh no.
But I also noticed that even Jesus's mom had a hard time trusting his timing.
Mm.
Because in verse 4 it says, Jesus replied, "Woman, why are you saying this to me? My time has not come yet."
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's interesting because I know as a human population in whole, we all have a hard time trusting God's timing.
Mm.
And so a question I have is why, as humanity, do we have such a hard time with that? What drives us to want stuff right now?
I mean, it stems from we just have a lack of patience.
Mm-hmm.
We Man, that's hard to say. Cause like
Stumped him.
we
1 point,
have
Dylan.
well, it's like there's multi levels to it of
Mhm.
you. It's hard to say like one defining
Yeah.
thing that it is. To me, I believe it stems from the emptiness that we have because of our separation from God in the garden.
Yeah.
We now have this aspiration to achieve, this aspiration to like do so much. That without that element, without patience, leads to the hurriedness that we see in society.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like we're running out of time. We feel like we need to do so much because I don't know. We come up with all sorts of excuses of like, I need to be so successful by the time I'm 24, or else like the whole rest of my life is doomed. And it's like,
Not really.
no, like actually you have incredible amounts of time.
Yeah.
You know, like I really feel like it stems from lack of patience, us trying to aspire for certain goals in an effort to validate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go, like, I mean, the very spiritual way of looking at that is we are trying to validate ourselves by our own merit.
Yeah.
And we want to rush that process because the longer we sit in our agony, the
Mhm.
longer we sit in our current situation, we feel agony, we feel sadness, we feel whatever. We don't want to deal with the repercussions. We don't want to deal with the process.
Yeah.
We want to just be at the success. I think that's why we rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I was thinking about this question when I was writing it. I think a lot of it has to do with we're trying to fill our wanting for something with physical things rather than spiritual.
For sure. I think it's stemmed in that. And so we are filling that desire, that hole we are trying to fill in whatever way that we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're just in a hurry to do it because we don't like dealing with having that hole.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you hurry to try and fill it. And then once you do, you realize, oh, wait, it actually doesn't fill.
Yeah.
And now you have to do it all over again. Now you need to do something even bigger. And it's like, oh, well, now, I'm still working hard. I'm still doing whatever. I'm still running around. But you're still having to do everything because that lack of contentment how do I say this? We as humans don't like the process. Inherently, we just want to get to the goal.
Yeah.
We are not content with where we are at currently.
Mm-hmm.
And so we aspire for more. But we aspire for more in an effort to like fill a void. But that void actually can't be filled with that thing because it's not going to last. The only thing that could fill that is an intimacy with the Lord. And what comes through intimacy with the Lord is the fruits of the Spirit, one of which is patience, one of which is, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. You have all of those elements help you to live a life that is God honoring.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, the patient aspect comes into play because you're then not hurrying.
Yeah.
You are now content in your situation because you are realizing that God is working on your heart, working on your soul. And there's things for you to do in that season, in your current walk of life. And you realize that you don't need to hurry to be in any kind of position because you're already exactly where God wants you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big problem with our generation of wanting something quick and trying to be the best thing we can be. And it's hard to look at all the people around you and who aren't following Christ and looking at them and realizing, oh, what they have now will not be sustainable for 50 years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, over time, it's just become more and more. We've heard the term microwave generation. We want everything like now. All of that is linked. Everything we've been talking about, it's all linked. Daniel, do you have thoughts to share regarding lack of patience, or why is it that we always feel like we don't have enough time?
Lack of patience.
I bought a new toy. That's what he's showing off camera, or not even on camera.
Yeah.
I just wanted it, so I bought it. I guess that's something. But what was you saying?
Dylan, restate the question.
Why do we have such a hard time trusting God's time?
I think it kind of goes into time. We don't put time aside for it. Because we put everything else like work and stuff. Like, we need to get this project out or this thing done. This. And we just don't put our time. Just sit there and just that can be pushed forward later. I just need to sit time and have my relationship with God. And that's what I need to do. I haven't been doing that lately. I just been going work. I'll listen to a podcast or something just to have some kind of dose of like just Bible, Bible or anything, just so I can get my mindset in that. But I just, for me, I need to sit down and actually just start reading the Bible and stuff. I just haven't had time. I just keep putting it off.
Yeah.
Oh, I get up early. I'm running late. I don't have time to sit there and read the Bible, so I'll throw a podcast on real quick, just to get some kind of Bible.
Yeah.
But
It's not. Yeah, and we've talked about that where it's not quite the same. It's good, but it's not. It's not a replacement. Yeah, I would agree with you. There's a lot of times that we get sidetracked with good things, like things that are important, going to work, going to school, taking care of whatever tasks that we have, whether it's with our family or things for ourselves that we just have to take care of, whatever. It fills up our schedule and we don't set aside time for God. I want to take a look at the question again, though, because as you asked it here, why do we have a hard time trusting God's timing? We don't take the time to know him, get to know him, and get to know where he's taking us.
Yeah.
We have a hard time trusting his timing because we're selfish and we want all of our prayer requests. We want them answered now and we want them answered our way. What we don't realize is that sometimes the prayer requests, if they were answered our way, would not be as good. Oftentimes, actually, most often, most often, you don't know what is actually the best. And so God working things in his timing actually leads to a better end result for you than if everything went according to your plans.
Yeah.
We have a hard time relinquishing that control because we just want the satisfaction now. We want the achievement now. We want the provision now. When in reality, what we're called to is to walk through this journey with Christ.
I feel like a good way to look at it is we're almost being kidnapped. We don't know.
Interesting.
We don't know what's going on.
Okay.
But the difference between normal kidnappings and this kidnapping is we know that it's going to end up good. No matter what the outcome is, we know it's going to be best for us and best what situation we're in.
I don't know. The other kidnapping could end up good too. We don't know.
I haven't really researched kidnappings enough to know which ones end up good or not.
It's not a perfect analogy by any means, really. I feel like there's a lot better analogies. No, but I see what you're saying. Again, the analogy we oftentimes hear is like when we're on a journey, we like to be in the driver's seat, or at the very least in the passenger, so we can help direct where we're going. In order to, what it means to follow Christ is that we are in the back seat, or we are like very hands off the wheel, because we are trusting in where he is taking us. Yeah, it like that process or that understanding only comes through time with God.
Yeah.
And reflecting on his word, reflecting on what he's doing in your life. I spoke on this last week, where when you reflect on the things that God is walking you through, you are then able to understand where he might be leading you. if we don't take the time to do that, then of course we're going to get impatient because we have a goal and we want to go to that thing. But if you stop and you reflect and you realize where God is wanting you to go, then you can have a patience that comes from his Spirit. You can have the patience to walk with Christ alongside that, in that process, in that path to the goal that he has for you. So yeah, what's stopping us from trusting God's timing is ourselves.
Yeah.
And what it means to be a follower of Christ is to die to ourselves, die to our own desires, and instead give that to the Lord and follow him.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I noticed about the passage that we read is the 6 stone water jars that are 20 to 30 gallons each.
Okay.
I have a hard time lifting the 5-gallon Home Depot and Lowe's buckets filled with water. I cannot imagine trying to move those.
Yeah.
That would be miserable.
Yeah, you're pretty weak. You just did lose
Oh my gosh.
four elementary girls,
Oh
during
my
tug of
gosh.
war.
I think they were roided up, Benny. I'm just saying, if I have to look at like eye level with one of them, I have an excuse to lose.
Explain what happened.
Dylan, explain, huh?
So, in Alpha,
And that's our kids ministry, yeah, like preteen.
Preteen ministry.
Blake had a great idea to have me play tug of war against a bunch of 4th and 5th graders.
Yeah.
I had 5th graders in there. Don't make me sound that bad. And so at first it was just them going against each other. The boys lost every
How am
single
I
time.
bleeding? Huh?
I don't know, man.
What?
I just looked down. I'm bleeding. Huh?
Well,
You'll be okay.
Everybody, I get hurt a lot.
yeah, randomly. It's probably the web shooter.
And so Blake's like, okay, for the last round, we'll see how many people Dylan can go against. I do 1 easy. He was the only guy on that team. I get to 2, pretty easy too. 3, I'm like, okay, starting to struggle a little. 4, I couldn't pull back. Like, they didn't yank me. I just couldn't move anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I was just like leaning back, and they were still pulling me. I'm like, okay. And then I noticed, I'm like, Blake put the biggest people first. That's not fair. And so, yeah. But I beat him in dodgeball 2 weeks prior. So,
hey, there you
not a total loser.
go. Not a total loser.
Still beat 4th and 5th graders in dodgeball. But yeah, those Home Depot buckets, or those 6 stone water jars.
Yeah, they must have been huge.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so that thing each one holds
20 to 30 gallons.
Yeah, each could hold 20 to 30 gallons of water. That's hefty.
That's
like
at least 4 Home Depot buckets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at some cases 6. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's very big.
It must have been like bodybuilders back then.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure. Had to be like 2-man carry, 3-man carry. Like, there's no way.
Those guys look like Rock Johnson back then.
Right?
Quick Google search. How much does 20 to 30 gallons of water weigh?
A lot.
In 20. We'll say 30 gallons. Wait. Oh, here we go. Oh my gosh. 250 pounds.
250 pounds per container.
That's just water, not the stone.
You're right. That's not the weight of the container. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, you'd be looking at 300 pounds that you're picking up.
At least.
Yeah.
For like a light stone.
Yeah.
They were jacked. Ugh.
Yeah. Golly.
That's heavy.
It is heavy. What else stands out to you in this passage?
I have a question about verse 10.
Okay.
So, in my notes, it says, what does verse 10 mean? It seems like it is comparing something. And looking at that, I was really focused on the quote when it says, everyone serves the good wine first, and then the cheaper wine when the guests are drunk. You have kept the good wine until now. Is Jesus comparing the wine to our works? Because I feel like a lot of times we work harder when people are around to impress other people, when in reality we need to be putting out the same high level effort of work no matter what.
So your statement in and of itself is correct.
But not related.
However, I don't think this is I don't think this is trying to be an analogy for
Yeah.
that.
Do you think it's an analogy for anything?
Not necessarily.
I think it's
It
just like,
could be. So here's a concept. There's this when you're studying the Bible, you have to be cautious not to read something into the text. It is
Mhm.
called an eisegesis study. There is exegesis. That is when you take the passage and you unpack it to, oftentimes that's when you hear pastors referencing the Greek or the Hebrew text and what it actually meant and the definitions of it, all that kind of stuff. That is exegetical study. Eisegetical study is when you take a concept and apply it to scripture so that it has an analogy for something that it may not actually be there for. So here, in the way that John is capturing this story, it may just be exactly what he said.
Literal.
It is literally, this was their social custom. When you have a party, you bring out good wine first because everyone gets drunk, and then afterwards, when the party is winding down, now you can bring out the cheap stuff because people don't care. They'll drink whatever. They'll just keep partying. That it was a commonplace practice in their culture. And so it stands out to the master of ceremonies and to the wedding party that now they have brought out the best wine at the end. So what can it mean something? Maybe it
Yeah.
could be used as an analogy to show maybe Jesus's presence. People were so prepared for having something good at first and then it dwindling over time, but Jesus is here to show us that the best is still to come, that the best is now showing up.
Yeah.
Could mean that. I don't think it inherently means that, but I think it's a good way to show that message to the readers and to the people that Jesus is here and he is better and he is also different than what their expectations are prior to his arrival.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, we can continue reading. My next question is not till the next part of.
Oh, yeah, we can continue reading if you don't have any other observations. Honestly, I thought your question was going to be like, well, this is the time to discuss Can you drink alcohol? And I thought we were going to go with that, but okay.
We can.
I mean,
Can you drink alcohol, Benny? I mean,
legally speaking, yes.
legally I can't.
Legally
can't.
speaking, you guys cannot.
Well,
There's no well about it, Daniel.
no, there are ways around it. Like if Benny bought us alcohol and we went to his house, we would be allowed to drink it with him at his house.
Yes.
So
Benny, can you buy us alcohol?
No.
Oh man, there goes my afternoon plans. Way to ruin the party, Benny.
Yeah.
We got to party like Jesus. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't think Jesus actually like partied to get drunk.
So to address this whole thing, it is very clearly stated in scripture that we are not to be drunk with wine, and therefore also we are not to be drunk with alcohol. The sin, what is advocated against, is being drunk. It is not a sin to have a drink,
Partake in drinking.
to partake in drinking, being respectful of legal authorities, and therefore drinking once you are a responsible adult at the age of 21 or under parental supervision, parental guardian supervision, whatever.
4 more months until I can do that.
So it is not a sin to drink alcohol. What is a sin is to get drunk. It is, the reason being is because you have less control over yourself, and you increase the likelihood of you not glorifying God. Like, when you are drunk, you are less mentally aware of your situation, and so it can lead to more things, more sins, more sinful lifestyle decisions than if you are cognitively there, than you are if you are sober. And so that is why Christians before had a reputation of like, well, no, I mean, still, Christians still have that reputation of like, oh, you just can't drink. No, you actually can. There's a lot of people who do. The line is you can't,
responsibility.
the drinking responsibly. And not only just responsibly, it is, what is your purpose in drinking?
Mm-hmm.
You can drink like in celebration and do it in a God-honoring way in which you're not trying to drink to get rid of a problem.
Yeah.
What I hear so often is people want to go drink, people want to go get drunk so that they can forget about what they're dealing with. And I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that people, like, I hate that notion. I think if you need to forget about your problems, you should go about it a different way than alcohol. Like that, there's going to be more, like, you're going to get way more out of it than just waking up hungover the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is my personal stance. There are people that differ on that. There is also the aspect that if your brother or sister in Christ has a past of being addicted to alcohol, you should then not drink in their presence because you don't want to cause them to stumble.
Yeah.
Some people might be totally fine and they're strong-willed. They're like, yeah, no, my desire is completely gone. I don't have a desire to drink anymore.
Mhm.
Cool. And they can like expressly tell you, go ahead, have a beer. I don't
Yeah.
care. Cool. Like, go on. But if your friend has not expressed that, and especially if your friend has expressed, hey, I have struggled with alcohol, I have struggled with drugs or whatever, like if they have an addictive personality, then you should probably not drink or not do anything that can cause them to stumble. That is what Paul's writing about in Romans, is that you should not drink in their presence because you're gonna cause them to stumble. Yeah, that's my whole thing. Is I think people just have a whole desire to get drunk and forget about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you have that desire, then you should probably go see a therapist and not go see Jack Daniels. Like,
Dang it.
he may only help for a night, and then the next morning you're going to regret it. And then you're going to try again the next night, and it's not going to work.
Have you ever had alcohol, Benny?
I have not.
I was gonna
Well, there's a thing in Hungarian culture, and actually I think it's everywhere. You parents or grandparents, like your family, will sometimes give you a sip of alcohol like when you're a kid, because it actually deters you from having it later in life, because it's such a weird taste that you can have a sip of beer when you're like 3 or 4, and then it actually deters you from doing it because it's like, tastes weird. And then later on, it like reverse psychologies you into don't drink until you're responsible.
So
Is
what
that what
happened
they-
happened with fruit?
Yeah, is that what happened with the watermelon juice?
Yes, exactly. They gave me so much fruit when I was a kid that I was like, this is terrible. I gotta wait until I can eat responsibly. It's still waiting. Do you guys have any thoughts on that whole topic? Or questions or
Like I've never I guess I could have had plenty of chances of drinking. Like I've been around people. I've gone to like the coast and like this guy's drinking. He's like, "Hey, you want a beer? You want something from the liquor
Mhm.
shop?" I'm like,
Mhm.
"No, I'm good." But it's like I just never had that desire. I've heard stories. Of,
Yeah.
my parents, like my dad's dad was an alcoholic and he beat his wife and stuff and beat his children and stuff and just ended up just being a big alcoholic and they got divorced over it. Then my mom's mom owned a bar and they drunk a lot and got drunk and ended up getting a divorce and stuff. And it's just horrible. And I don't know. I've heard Donnie's Anthony's take on it too. It's like he's never had a desire and there's no reason to
Yep.
drink. And I've never had that desire to drink.
Mhm.
And then since I was adopted, I've heard my biological mother was addicted to all these drugs, alcohol, and stuff. And I hear it could be very addictive for me.
That is true. The addictive personality attribute is a genetic thing. And so that is why, if your family has had a history of alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever, you need to be extra careful because you have a predisposition to falling into an addiction to those things, more so than some other people might be able to just have like a single beer and they're fine. Those with addictive personalities have a increased likelihood of they can't stop at just one beer. They can't stop at just one whatever. My family similarly, generations up, I have had family members with a history of alcoholism, And my dad drinks, but very sparingly. He might have like 1 or 2 beers on like a celebratory occasion. Other than that, like he doesn't really. I don't think I've ever seen either of my parents drunk, and I think that shows me how you can do it responsibly. Um, and because of the family members extended that have had that personality trait, I have it is possible that I have that addictive personality predisposition. And so I am careful to not fall into that. So for me, it started as it actually started for me as a religious thing that like I grew up seeing the whole we're Christians, we can't drink. And then I started processing it and I'm like, my family drinks. And so I had to like think through it. I had to like process through it. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's when I got to the belief that I shared earlier of like, it's not a sin to drink. It is a sin to get drunk. And so it is possible to drink responsibly. Cool. When I became 21, because I've already spent so many years thinking and processing what it means to drink, I similarly got to the conclusion of I have no desire to do so.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Like, I don't want to fall into the situation of what happens if I am super addicted and then it causes me to do things that I didn't want to do. And then so why risk that when like I'm perfectly fine just drinking water?
Yeah.
Like I don't need to have alcohol for any particular purpose. So that's why I have never had a desire for it. Never been in circles of people wanting to like go out and party and whatnot. It's not really my vibe. There was one time that I did go with a crew that like it was a celebratory occasion. We went bar hopping, and I remember being so like I felt so out of place. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. Because I had pre-decided who I am, like because I knew who I was and knew what I believed, I was able to be there and not be tempted. I had that strong foundation in Christ and that belief. And so I was able to fight against any kind of temptation and not drink, not do anything, and immediately know this is not for me.
Yeah. I'd say my family's kind of in the same boat as y'all. Of I'm not 100% sure if there were any alcoholics in my family, but I am playing it safe just because of there's no good way to test if you're have that addictive personality. So it's either like you're all in or you're all out. And so it's to be safe, I'm gonna be all out. But yeah, like I think I've seen my dad have 1 beer my entire life, and that was when he graduated college. And my mom will have a glass of wine here and there, but like there's still that responsibility of it of being an adult with your actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I've said, like just kidding it, like, well, kind of kidding. Yeah. If I ever get the chance, I might try whiskey or something just to try it. I'm not gonna. That's the only ever alcohol I've ever wanted to try is like a bourbon or whiskey because it sounds kind of cool. But other than that, I really don't have any desire to try it. If I never get it, I'm fine with it. But if it's like, oh, it's a nice thing or something, and I have the chance, I'm like, okay, I'll try this a little bit. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna start drinking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just something I would like to try, just to say, oh, I've tried it, and
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
Yeah. Um, I have a huge, how do I say this?
I don't even know what you're trying to say. So.
I oftentimes appreciate artisanal items, meaning,
You like going to art museums?
yes.
Nerd.
So I like to appreciate art forms. I like to appreciate art, like fine art, paintings and whatnot, sculptures. I like to appreciate music. I like to appreciate like crafting in terms of like leather craft, wood, like woodworking, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate the art form. The art form that is alcohol is somewhat fascinating to me because there is a whole science into how
Mixing
was this
drinks.
wine put together, like with what kind of elements was it mixed with, what kinds of, like, it has such and such. Oh, this year it was a drought and so it changed the taste of the grapes. This year had plenty of rain and so now it tastes this way, and this was raised, these grapes were from such and such vineyard in whatever country, and that makes it taste a different way, and because we mixed it with oak, it has there's so much that goes into that, that does fascinate me. All that to say, the only thing I've thought about was similar to you in, if I could do it in such a way in which it is an appreciation for the art form, then I might consider having alcohol, but I would have to safeguard myself because of, as mentioned earlier, that predisposition to an addictive personality. So I have to watch to see that my desire for it doesn't overcome me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So continuing in John chapter 2, we're going to go from 13 to, what is it,
22.
22? Who's reading?
Don't look at me.
You want to rock, paper, scissors?
No, I think you should do it.
Okay. Well, you can just ruin the fun.
I know, I'm a party pooper.
We know. Now the Jewish feast of Passover was near, so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. He found in the temple courts those who were selling oxen and sheep and doves and the money changers sitting at tables. So he made a whip of cords and drove them all out of the temple courts. With the sheep and the oxen, he scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold the doves, and he said, "Take these things away from me. Take these things away from here. Do not make my Father's house a marketplace." His disciples remembered that it was in writing, "Zeal for your house will devour me." So then the Jewish leaders responded, "What sign can you show us since you are doing these things?" Jesus replied, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." Then the Jewish leaders said to him, "This temple has been under construction for 46 years, and you are planning to raise it up and bring it down again in 3 days?" But Jesus said, speaking about the temple of his body. So after he raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the saying that Jesus had spoken.
All right. So
He predicted his future.
Yeah, a little bit of hints at like what he's gonna do. I like the aside that John makes, because John is just trying to write down the story. So he's like, well, and then it was near Passover and we went to the temple and then this happened and this happened. And then he shifts from like telling the story or explaining the story to being like, we didn't understand when he said this. It wasn't until later that we were like, oh, he meant, okay, gotcha. Wow, he was
makes sense.
clever. So yeah, what stands out here to you? Is there a particular verse that stands out to you?
I have another question.
Okay.
What does it mean when it says we should not make the church a marketplace?
So what was happening here was these sellers were there to market cattle, sheep, and doves for sacrifices. So everyone had to come and make sacrifices for their sins and all this kind of, as per the Mosaic law. You had to go do this. And so these people were taking advantage of the religious practice and being like, oh, you have to give sacrifices? Well, you know that God will only accept the best cattle. And so if you need that, I have the best cattle right here. And I'm actually set up at the temple for your convenience. So I'll be right here for your sacrifices. You could get the very best cattle. I have the cleanest sheep. They are perfectly white. They are because it had to be pristine. It had to be the firstborn. Like there's all these requirements that are outlined in Leviticus and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So these sellers were set up here in order to make profit over the religious practice that these people were having to make. And so Jewish people, I mean, it was convenient. People are taking advantage of like, I could just go buy cattle and then go take it to the temple and sacrifice it. Jesus was mad because he's like, you are missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
The point is not that you kill these cows just to appease God. The point is that you are having to make a sacrifice for your sins. I don't care about who, like, I don't care about you just bringing in a cow. This is more so about you bringing in yourself and your cattle, your sheep, your doves, so that you can understand the weight of paying for sin.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is about. And these money changers, well, these market sellers, what do we call them? Farmers? What?
Marketeers?
Market? I don't know.
Auctioneers?
Merchants.
Same thing.
These merchants and money changers were only here to make profit over the religious beliefs. That is what Jesus meant when he says, do not make the temple a marketplace. You're missing the point. The temple is here so that you could keep the law, the temple is here so that you can come and convene with God. And so we should not be going through these kinds of efforts and making profit over people trying to keep their religion.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to take this passage and be like, oh, it shouldn't be a marketplace. So that means the church can't have a bookstore. No. Like the church can have a bookstore. The church can have a cafe. Like, are we sinners because we have a cafe? We're sinners, but not because we have a cafe. It's different because the point of this was, oh, we know you have to do this sacrifice, so we're going to make money off of you having to do your practice. We are not making, like, the point of a Christian bookstore, the point of a church cafe is not to make money off of you being there for spiritual practice or you having to come to us for spiritual practice. No, we are here to like serve you and like be a resource to you, and anyone can ask. I mean, we could only speak to our cafe because we don't have a bookstore, but like our cafe, runs negative because we are
Yeah.
just here to like provide an environment. Our apparel we sell at cost. We just want to have cool shirts for you guys to enjoy, for the church to enjoy. So we buy it for $15. You're gonna buy it for $15. Like we're not here to like, we don't want to lose money.
Mhm.
We want to be good stewards of it. So that's why when we buy the shirt for $15, we are asking that you give us $15 so that we can properly take the funds to ministry efforts and not just to be like, hey, we're gonna buy $5 shirts and you're gonna pay us $15 shirts so that we can have pay raises. No, we are not making profit. We are taking the funds and trying to use them for God's kingdom.
Mhm.
I feel like CBC does that.
No.
Really?
Yes.
They sell at cost?
I don't know if it's at cost, but I don't believe that it is of a nefarious purpose.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about like Noel, how you're saying at No OT, how all those like we had all those vendors and stuff that was similar, but I don't think it is.
Right. So what's the intention?
Well, they're trying to make a profit.
But what's the intention of them setting up? The intention of them setting up for Noel
Let's get people
is
to church.
yeah, it's church people, and we just want to be like, hey, we want to showcase the talents of our church members.
Mhm.
And if it can be a blessing to you, go pay the artisans for their work.
Mm-hmm.
The church isn't making money. Those people are only making money because they are using their talents to make a product. And if you want to buy the product, you could buy the product. Is it for the sake of you being able to go to church? No. It's like somebody, there was a church member who showed me, he does woodworking, actually incredible woodworking. Like he showed me and I was like, you built this? Like this, it was so smooth, like incredible. I mean, he has like really nice machinery at home to be able to do this. And he had like laser engraving, like text. And I'm like, my goodness, this is going to be really, he was really excited to be able to set up at Noel. The heart behind the merchants setting up in the temple was, I am going to make a profit off of you because you need these things in order to keep your spiritual salvation, quote unquote.
Mhm.
The heart behind Noel is, we want to showcase the talents of these people. And it might be a benefit to you of like you having decor, you having whatever at home. But that's completely up to you. This is not anything like for the sake of salvation, obviously. You know, your salvation is not based upon having an excellently done wooden cross. Like, so that is the differentiating factor for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sin to have things for sale. It's because these people were making a profit off of church.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm selling cattle right now.
Okay. So you're saying this is a bad time to bring up that I have 40 cows for sale?
Especially this one called number 7 cow. It kicks, so if you want to make it steak.
Oh my gosh.
Are you actually selling them?
No.
No.
I wish I could kill number 7 though. Just want to kick me.
kicks.
It kicked me.
I mean, you can kill it. It's just going to be an expensive mistake.
Not for my stomach.
Well, this is one meal. Then it's going to be a mistake.
Do you know how much of the cow did you eat? All of it?
The cow? We just got the one meal from it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I just needed one steak out of it.
Would you eat a cow tongue, Daniel?
Don't think I would, but
There's a chance.
There's a chance.
I mean, if it has the right spices and everything, anything might taste good.
Wow.
I think I have lunch for you tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
You're
If-
gonna go cook a cow tongue.
If I cook a cow tongue, will you eat it?
if you eat it,
That wasn't a part of the agreement.
I'll eat it if you eat it. And if Benny eats it,
But he won't
Funny.
even eat fruits and vegetables. He's not gonna eat a cow tongue.
It's meat.
Barely.
Yeah.
It's inside of meat.
No, it's some meat. If you think about it.
Daniel, if I
I
could
don't know
cue-
what a tongue is at this point. I don't know. It's not meat. It's
Is
not
it a
fat.
muscle?
Is it? It's a muscle.
I think.
I don't know.
Oh, my tongue's pretty strong.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. What do you,
What do you want from me?
By tomorrow, if I find a cow tongue, cook it and season it up, will you eat it for lunch? Not the entire thing. I just want you to take a bite.
If you agree to take a bite also.
But I'm the one preparing it.
That's
Well, the
fine.
chef has to eat what he makes
Not all the time.
a lot of the time.
No,
So if I get sick, you get sick.
that's not how that works.
For the sake of the challenge.
Okay.
Fine. If you miraculously have enough time with all your school plan to cook a cow tongue tomorrow, I will eat some of it.
I think the biggest problem is trying to find a cow tongue because I'm in the HEB meat section and I do not see a cow
Well,
tongue.
you'd be surprised.
How would you even cook a cow tongue?
Probably the same as anything else.
Well, I mean, you
I would
can't
just
cook.
throw it into the frying pan.
You can't really cook a cow tongue in the regular because you can't eat the outside. I don't think.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you could find a
You're
YouTube
Hungarian.
tutorial.
You should know this.
I'm sure you could find a YouTube tutorial.
Are you looking it up, Daniel?
Mm-hmm.
You can eat like.
You don't have the time, Dylan. Huh?
How long does it take?
It takes 12 hours to cook a cow tongue.
12 hours?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Why?
Different.
Unclear.
Okay.
Do you like it raw?
Bring it to a boil over a high heat, then reduce the heat and slow cook the meat for 3 hours. Another option would be to place your beef tongue in water and other ingredients in a slow cooker and braise it for 12 hours
Oh my
overnight. If you have short time, you can cook the meat within an hour by using an Instapot.
Oh,
Well, I don't have it in.
we should have started with that.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't look too bad. Just kind of looks like a steak. Huh?
Well, they don't. It basically is.
Interesting.
Doesn't look like terrible.
Interesting.
I don't know what it tastes like. Huh?
When I think of a steak, I do not think of that.
I didn't say it looked like a good steak. Huh?
All right, let's circle back around to John chapter 2.
And not cows.
And not cattle. Well, cattle.
It's actually really tender, supposedly.
What else stands out to you about this story?
I ran out of notes.
Well,
I think the big part of it is just how he predicted. Well, I guess he didn't really predict. I guess he knew
Mhm.
that the 3 days thing and how he referred to his body as a temple
yeah.
and not the building. Because I feel like that's where a lot of people get confused is the church being the temple when in reality it's we're worshiping Jesus, not the place we go.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about it, right? Like that's what changed. Before, the priest had to go to the temple in order to be able to commune with God. And like, especially in Old Testament, like, you know, the Holy of Holies thing, like only one priest was able to go inside and he had to have a rope tied around his leg because if he was found with sin, he would die instantly. And the people had to drag him out by the rope because they were not worthy to go into the Holy of Holies. It was a big deal to be able to go into the presence of the Lord. And now we are able to come to Jesus freely because of what he has done.
Yeah.
And so that's what changes. Jesus is now the temple, quote unquote, so to speak, because instead of having to go to a temple, we can now commune with him anywhere because of his Spirit. So it's a beautiful thing. And he's already queuing up very early on. I mean, John chapter 2, where early on, he's already queuing what he is here to do. I don't know if we can hear that or not, Dylan.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. That's weird. Okay.
If you hear a weird noise, it is Dylan. No? And it means that Benny could not edit it out. Huh?
Right. I might be editing this for a little bit extra. Nope.
No?
Nope.
You're welcome, Benny. I'm just making your job easy.
All right.
You think.
Why should you be able to hear it like so clear?
Right. I'll be editing the episode and all you hear is.
That'd be so funny.
Let me ask you guys this. So Jesus goes in and here he fashions a whip to drive out people and he flips the tables of the money changers. Here he demonstrates anger. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think oftentimes we see Jesus as like kind-hearted, loving, encouraging, whatever. But here is a very different Jesus. What do you make of anger-filled Jesus?
I feel like it'd be like super scary back then. If like you knew like his disciples, they knew him like for months and months and years. I don't know how long like they were together. But
I mean, Acts 3 years, but this I think is early on, or this I think is in the middle.
So like the whole time he's good. He doesn't hurt a fly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, just all this sudden rage. I feel like I'd still be like scared of him.
Yeah.
Like there's this whole other side of him. It's like, but that also means he was human, had the human emotions also.
Yeah.
Of rage.
Sure.
I don't know if that's like connect. Like I know like the devil's like anger and kind of stuff too, but I don't know how if that'd be sinning or not. Like
well,
like you get so angry that you sin and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if you see what I'm saying.
So, I mean, that's a great point to bring up. Jesus could not have sinned.
Yeah.
So, how do we have anger in a righteous way?
I feel like if you handle the anger situation there's two different ways to handle it. You can either continue to get more angry about what is going on, or you can realize what is going on, and instead of being angry about it, try to find a solution to A, your anger, and B, the problem that is presented to you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm blanking.
Because you do bring up a good point. Is oftentimes the devil is equated with anger and rage, and like when we see rage depicted in culture and movies and TV shows, it's even referred to as like you're tapping into your darkness, and that is the only place that rage comes from. If that was true, then Jesus would have been sinning, but he can't. He has to be perfect. He is God. He is perfect. So how is he able to have righteous anger? Anger, being angry about something, it is similarly to our earlier discussion. Being angry necessarily is not a sin. It is how you carry out anger that becomes sin. Now here, what Jesus did was drive these merchants out of the temple. And so his whole drive was to keep the holiness of the temple.
Mm-hmm.
he showed us how we can uphold righteousness while pursuing a good virtue. We are pursuing the virtue of having a temple, having a holy of holies, having this place that is meant to be for communing with God. And so we can go about it in such a way where we're not going to have tolerance for people who are just here to capitalize on our religious practices.
Yeah.
There's no room for that. Where do we see that in today? We see that in how when somebody's just blatantly disrespecting church, let's say somebody would show up at church, because throughout the week we have open lobbies. We've had, I mean, you guys have experience. We've had different homeless people who have come through, and some are interesting characters.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of their privacy, like I don't want to just like put them on blast like this, you know? They are interesting characters. Sometimes they do things that are just, hey, we're a church. We're here to love you. And what you're doing is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
That both are true. Jesus loves them, the merchants.
But they're not doing what's right.
It's also not okay for you to be here and for you to be doing this. And so you need to go now. He goes to like an extreme length even, which shows us that sometimes you can be harsh. Like you can be strong with your beliefs, with your there's a word I'm trying to get to, but I'm blanking on it. But you can be strong about your actions because of what you're trying to uphold.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way you can be righteous with your anger. You have to watch, as you pointed out and as you mentioned, that it doesn't get to a level at which you start hurting people, at which you start, doing things where it, like, let's say you just start like insulting everyone. So let's go back to the
earlier today.
Let's go back to the example of the homeless people. Like if we would just be here and we would just put them on blast, or we would tell everyone, oh my gosh, can you believe such and such person was here? And then they did this, they did that. Like we start telling everyone and embarrassing them in front. How is that honoring?
It'd be kind of like Matt going up on like a Sunday morning or something. Is, oh, this person came in today, did this
and they did that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How would that be honoring? How would that be respectful? How would that be loving? It's not.
Yeah.
However, you have a responsibility to uphold the church establishment, the building, and you have a responsibility to be loving and caring and respectful to the people.
Yeah.
You can do both in this process of exertion of anger.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible to have anger, but carry it out in a righteous manner. The only way to do that, the only way to do that is to make sure that when we are doing it, we are attuned very closely to the Spirit. Because if we start going too close to our human nature, then we will fall into those more harsh and then more sinful anger profiles that we normally see.
Yeah.
There was a story that I love this quote that somebody's whistling very loudly in the hallway. And last time, so remember that we heard like the weird suction cup noise or whatever, and it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
On the podcast, we mentioned like, what is that noise and whatever. The mics can't pick it up, so nobody knows. Nobody knows. And for everyone listening, we're just going crazy. So, So I was listening to the Basement podcast, and Tim Ross was telling a story about his experience being a traveling pastor, a traveling preacher, and going around church to church. And he goes to preach at such and such conference or something. A church invites him to go to this thing, and they're being really dodgy about paying him. And he's like, they keep, I don't know if they said like, yeah, we'll discuss that later or whatever. And it's just really strange. Like they weren't mentioning how they're going to pay him. And then, after the whole convention, or sorry, during the whole thing, the service, the pastor comes up and after Tim's done preaching, the pastor comes up and he goes, man, this was so great. I'm so glad that Pastor Tim Ross was able to be here. And we're actually going to take up a love offering for this man and his ministry. And Tim's like, oh, this is so cool. It's going to be such a blessing. The church takes up this offering and Tim gets like $5. Like Tim barely barely gets any money from this thing. And he goes, I saw how much the church was giving. You're actually taking my money, like taking away my payment. And they're like, well, this is what we pulled up from the offering.
Wow.
And in the moment, Tim felt he didn't want to lean into his anger and his rage.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, he instead actually leaned more towards like sadness. He was like, man, I'm just trying to make it out here, and now I don't get paid for this job. Like there goes the weekend. Like I just made no money. Like he's going on. And as he's sitting there almost crying, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? He starts feeling anger. And he was like, God, I don't want to feel this anger. I want to be righteous about this. I don't want to go about this. I don't want to be mad at these people. I don't. And what God's Spirit tells him is like, that's not your anger. That's mine. And I remember listening to that and just being like, oh crap.
Wow.
In those moments, it's not you being mad. It's actually that an injustice has been done to one of God's children, and God is mad.
Yeah.
And the Spirit, we are feeling that through his Spirit. And so the anger that Tim felt in that moment was not spawned out of sin and revenge and wanting to enact whatever. It was actually felt because God understood my child has been wronged.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I share that is because it shows again how we can have righteous anger. We can be mad when injustice is done. I can be very mad about what is being done in Israel. The whole world is basically mad about what is being done in Israel. Those crimes, those war crimes that are being committed, those are not okay. And being caught up in like being filled with anger because of that is not inherently a sin. The injustice is something that even God has anger about.
Yeah.
It is how we enact anger that is the differentiating factor. If we respond to those situations of being angry, if we respond in those situations with revenge, that's a problem. We are not, remember we studied the passage of revenge is not for us. Revenge is the Lord's. We have to give those situations over to God and let him enact vengeance in his justice. However, we can feel that anger, and our response is to give it to God, and our response is to handle our parameter of the situation responsibly, respectfully, caringly, but also strongly and firmly.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening? To get paid?
No.
Oh.
Tim never got paid for that.
Wow.
That church is closed now.
Wow.
Tim looked it up and he's like, they're not in business anymore because they kept doing wrong. Who knows what all else happened, but God took care of it. If there was somebody who was misappropriating funds from the church and misleading the congregation, that church and that pastor has no business being in operation.
Always follow the rules.
Follow the rules. Follow the Lord.
The Lord's rules.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what else? Any other final thoughts or anything on this passage?
Not really. Mostly of it is just knowing how to control your anger.
Yeah.
Through rough situations.
Yeah. Again, it comes through like closeness to the Spirit. When you are close to the Lord, when you are faithfully studying his word, I have like I don't know, something in my throat. When you are close to God's Spirit, you are then able to know how to respond. If you are not spending time in his word, if you are not spending time in prayer, then you will be leaning heavily on yourself.
Yeah.
And that is when you fall into your own human nature.
Make mistakes.
That's when you make the mistakes. That's the key. Stick close to his Spirit, and he will guide you.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll continue on with John chapter 3, and technically the tail end of John chapter 2, but there's like 3 verses, and it all has the same head. It's all under the same heading of Jesus meeting with Nicodemus. I think it's a really, really cool passage. It has one of the most famous. It has probably the most famous Bible verse in all of existence. So next week,
3:16.
Yeah, next week we'll be reading that. So I'm excited for that. I'm looking forward to it. So Daniel, Dylan, thank you for being here again. Thank you for joining me for this.
Daniel, if you're listening to this, you suck, and you should be coming here.
Next week we'll talk about language and encouraging words.
Why are you berating our listening audience?
Oh, he told me his excuse was putting up lights tonight.
He has to see somehow.
Oh, you're talking about Nathaniel?
Yeah, Nathaniel.
Oh, I thought you said for anyone listening. I'm like, what are you doing?
No, Nathaniel.
These are our faithful listeners.
No, Nathaniel.
Oh, no, Nathaniel's fine.
No, all listeners, I love you guys.
There we go.
I'm talking just to you, Nathaniel.
Oh my god.
Next week's episode will get 0 views.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for listening, and we will see you guys back here next week.
Adios.